At 92, Carol Burnett finally revealed the shocking truth about Harvey Korman. For half a century, she kept quiet. For half a century, every time someone mentioned the name Harvey Korman, the man who had stood beside her, laughed with her, fought with her, and helped shape one of the greatest shows in American television history. Carol Burnett simply changed the subject. She dodged it with grace, with humor, with that familiar smile that made America feel safe. But behind that smile was a truth she refused to touch, until now. In May 2025, inside a quiet suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Carol Burnett, now 92, her voice thin but steady, finally allowed the door of memory to open. Vanity Fair had asked her a question she had avoided for decades. This time, she didn't look away. Her hands trembled slightly, her eyes glistened, not with age, but with weight. The weight of a story she had carried too long. "I've kept this secret for too many years," she whispered. "And maybe Harvey deserves the truth more than he deserved the silence." The room went still. Even the air seemed to pause, as if afraid to disturb her. Because for the first time, the woman who made America laugh every Sunday night was no longer speaking about jokes, sketches, or applause. She was speaking about pain, about fear, about the darkness behind the laughter, about the man who made millions laugh but never learned how to stop hurting. And as the camera rolled, Carol Burnett, one of the last giants of the Golden Age, finally peeled back the velvet curtain on the truth she had hidden for almost 50 years. A truth that would rewrite everything the world thought it knew about Harvey Korman. She looked up, eyes bright but fragile, and said, "If only he hadn't been born in a time that forced people to hide who they were." And with that single sentence, the room changed. The story changed. Everything changed, because this was no longer a tale of two comedians. It was the confession of a woman who had loved a troubled friend and lost him long before he died. Carol Burnett leaned back in her chair, eyes drifting somewhere far beyond the room, far beyond 2025, back to a world painted in studio lights and Sunday night laughter. At 92, the interviewer later said, "She didn't speak like someone recalling the past. She spoke like someone still living inside it." And perhaps she was, because the story of Carol and Harvey wasn't just a story of comedy. It was a story of two souls standing under the brightest spotlight television had ever known, while one of them slowly dimmed in the shadows. The golden years of American television. The Carol Burnett Show wasn't just popular, it was a national ritual. Families gathered around their TV sets the way earlier generations gathered around radios, fireplaces, or dinner tables. Week after week, Carol and Harvey created magic, sketches that became cultural landmarks, characters that still echo across American nostalgia. On screen, Harvey Korman was flawless, charming, sharp. He made Carol laugh on cue, and when she laughed, America laughed with her. But Carol revealed the truth. Off screen, Harvey was someone else entirely, quiet, withdrawn, mysterious in a way that didn't match the man millions adored. "There was a wall between us," Carol said softly. "I couldn't see it, but I felt it every time the lights went out." The first marriage, a picture-perfect lie. Harvey's first wife, Donna Ertz, a gentle Chicago woman, created a peaceful little world in Glendale. Dinner ready before tapings, family photos neatly arranged, children playing in the yard, a life that looked almost too perfect. Carol recalled visiting one afternoon, coffee in hand, sunlight pouring through the curtains. Donna chatted warmly, But Harvey sat silently, legs crossed, staring out the window, unreachable. I couldn't understand, Carol said. How could someone so funny be so sad? That marriage lasted nearly 20 years until the laughter in Harvey's home dried up just as it slowly dried inside him. He began coming home later, drinking more, speaking less, and when the divorce announcement appeared in the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, only one short line, amicably, it carried none of the truth. None of the nights Harvey sat alone on the porch with gin in his hand, a silent storm trapped inside him. 1976, the night Carol found him. Carol remembers it vividly. Harvey had skipped rehearsal, a rare and concerning thing. When she drove to his house that March night, the door was unlocked, lights off, silence everywhere. Inside, Harvey sat alone in the dark, holding an old cast photo, his face softened by shadows and loneliness. He didn't look up at first, and when he did, his voice cracked. "I'm tired of having to be someone else, Carol." That was the night she realized the wall wasn't something between them. It was something he had spent his entire life building around himself, brick by brick, fear by fear. Hollywood never saw that Harvey, only Carol did. Rumors and the secret he could never outrun on the CBS lot. Whispers circulated quietly, carefully, because in those days, even rumors could destroy careers. They spoke of Harvey as spending long hours alone with a male colleague from the sound department. Hours after taping ended, conversations that never seemed to end. In the 1970s, such whispers weren't just gossip. They were dangerous. Carol knew, she had always known, but she said nothing. "I was afraid," she confessed, "that if I spoke, I would break the last fragile part of him still standing." Hollywood was a world of bright smiles and locked hearts, a world where different was dangerous. A single rumor could erase everything. Harvey lived two lives, two versions of himself, neither one truly free. He never stopped performing, Carol said, not even when he left the stage. Carol Burnett closed her eyes for a moment before continuing, as if the memories still carried heat, the kind that burns even after half a century. "People remember Harvey as brilliant," she said, and he was. But brilliance has a price, and his price was anger. What she would reveal next was something only the cast, crew, and a handful of terrified CBS staffers had ever witnessed. 1974, the most tense season in show history. Harvey Korman was at the height of fame, 3 Emmys, rival networks begging to steal him away, CBS preparing to give him a solo series. He should have been at his happiest. Instead, something inside him began to unravel. There were days, Carol recalled, when all we had to do was hear his footsteps coming down the hallway and the entire room froze. His temper had become unpredictable, an invisible storm that could explode without warning. A sketch that broke the crew's nerves. It happened during a simple sketch. A young cast member laughed a split second earlier than the script required. Just a tiny mistake, barely noticeable. But Harvey stopped cold. He stared at the young actor and snapped, "Do you think this is an audition?" The room fell dead silent. The cameras cut. No one dared breathe. Carol forced a laugh, joking to the audience. "Harvey's just testing the microphone's durability." They chuckled. The moment passed, but backstage, no one laughed. "That was when I saw the light inside him dim," Carol whispered. He was losing control, and he knew it. The coffee cup incident. The tension kept building. He argued with directors, demanded rewrites, walked off mid-rehearsal. And then came the moment the crew never forgot. One February evening, the technical director asked for a brief pause to adjust sound. Harvey didn't respond with words. He grabbed his coffee cup and threw it on the floor, shattering it into pieces. The ceramic splintered. Hot liquid splashed across the stage. A few drops hit the camera lens. The cameraman's hands shook for 2 days. CBS executives were alerted. Emergency meetings were held. For the first time, they were considering something unthinkable, temporarily removing Harvey from the show. Carol's private confrontation. Carol asked to speak with him alone. They met in a small dressing room, the stale scent of cigarettes hanging in the air. "Harvey," she said, "you can't keep going like this. You're frightening the whole company." He looked up, cold and exhausted. "I'm not paid to be nice, Carol," he hissed. "I'm paid to make them laugh." When he left the room, the door slammed so hard the makeup mirror cracked. It was the moment Carol realized she couldn't protect him forever. That night, CBS drafted a memo. Harvey Korman to take a break for health reasons. But Carol knew the truth. Everyone did. It wasn't a break. It was the first ever forced dismissal in the show's history. The return, a man changed forever. 3 weeks later, Harvey came back. No warning, no explanation. He walked through the CBS hallway whistling, hands in pockets as if nothing had happened. The crew froze. Carol waited. He stopped in front of her, silent, searching her face for judgment. She forced a smile and said, "If you break anything else, let me at least choose it first." It was the first smile he had shown in months, but something inside him had changed completely. Harvey performed perfectly after that, too perfectly. No more improvisation, no more spark, no warmth, no mischief. He performed like he was paying for a sin, Carol said, but the price he paid was his own joy. The solo series that destroyed him. When the show finally ended in 1978, Harvey announced he would prove his success wasn't tied to Carol. CBS invested heavily. His own program launched with fanfare, but ratings collapsed immediately. Writers changed, time slots changed. Nothing worked. After 5 episodes, CBS pulled the plug. That night, Carol was home when the phone rang. Harvey's voice trembled on the line. "Did you see it?" "I did," she whispered. "That show deserved more time." "No, Carol," he said, breaking. "It should have had you." Then came laughter, shaking, broken, that dissolved into sobs. "I cried with him," Carol said, "not because he failed, but because I knew he had never forgiven himself for 1974. Carol Burnett took a long breath before continuing this part of the story, because this wasn't just about Harvey's temper or his inner turmoil or even the secrets he carried. This was about Hollywood power, the kind that smiles to your face and destroys your life behind closed doors. And Harvey Korman became one of its victims. Hollywood in the 1970s, glitter on the curtain, shadows behind it. In those days, Carol explained, Hollywood was not run by the actors, it was run by the men behind the desks. CBS was a kingdom, and the Carol Burnett Show was its crown jewel. Executives wanted a certain image of America on their screens. Strong, upright, traditional, patriotic. Harvey fit that mold perfectly. The broad shoulders, the deep voice, the commanding presence. They wanted him to represent an ideal America, Carol said. But Harvey, he only wanted to be a comedian. Yet they kept pushing him onto glamorous stages, political fundraisers or charity galas that weren't charity at all, quiet rooms where money and influence shifted like invisible tides. The party where everything changed. Carol remembered one night vividly, a glittering CBS executive's home in 1972. Guests floated around like royalty. Champagne glasses clinked. Cigars burned in corners full of whispered deals. Harvey stood alone against a wall, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. Carol approached him. "Why won't you mingle?" she asked gently. Harvey glanced at the room, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if they want to talk to me or to the face they built for me." That was when Carol realized it wasn't fame he hated. It was being used. Harvey pushes back and pays the price. By 1974, the cultural landscape was shifting. Anti-war sentiment rose. Younger audiences demanded freedom, not perfection. CBS insisted Harvey attend a high-profile gala supporting a political campaign. Harvey refused. A small act, but in Hollywood, a small act could be a declaration of war. 3 days later, CBS PR quietly floated a rumor. Harvey Korman is experiencing health issues. Suddenly, he was removed from promotional material. Invitations dried up. Executives avoided eye contact. No one said the word punishment, but everyone knew the contract offer that broke him. In 1976, CBS offered Harvey a stunning 5-year exclusive deal, but there was a catch. He had to commit to community activities that were political campaigns disguised as charity. Harvey refused. "I'm an actor," he said, "not a pawn." A month later, his calendar was empty. The phone stopped ringing. Not officially blacklisted. Hollywood never did that on paper. They were more civilized, more subtle. This was something else. The soft blacklist, invisible, silent, lethal. For 2 years, Harvey vanished from television. Reporters wrote, "Harvey is resting." But Carol knew. He wasn't resting. He was breaking. The letters he wrote. During his disappearance, Carol received only a few letters during that time, the handwriting unsteady, the words heavy. "I don't know who I'm performing for anymore, Carol. Maybe the audience stopped laughing, or maybe I forgot how to make them laugh." He was a man fading, not because of illness, but because of a system that punished him for saying no. The comeback that wasn't a comeback. In 1981, Harvey returned to film History of the World, Part 1. He was funny, sharp, professional, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. Off camera, he sat alone, quiet, hands folded in his lap. During one scene, the director told him to smile more. Harvey broke down. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't angry, he just broke. Carol visited the set. When he saw her, he forced a smile, thin, weary. "They let me come back," he said softly, "but no one really wants to watch." Carol squeezed his hand. "That's because they don't know what they're losing." But Harvey only shook his head. "They know, Carol. They just don't care. I used to think I was an actor. Turns out I was just a mirror, showing people what they wanted to see." The truth Carol finally admitted. Harvey didn't fade because his talent ran out, Carol said. He faded because Hollywood manipulated him. A pause, then, and by the time he realized it, he couldn't find himself anymore. Carol Burnett's voice softened as she entered the part of the story she had avoided for nearly 20 years. Her hands folded on her lap, her eyes lowered, because this part, the final chapter of Harvey Korman's life, was not about fame, anger, or Hollywood politics. It was about regret. Raw, quiet, unfixable regret. And a letter she kept hidden in a safe for 2 decades. The letter delivered after his death. Harvey Korman died in May 2008. Aneurysm, a gentle Los Angeles afternoon. The news barely filled a few lines in the papers. Carol read those lines again and again, over breakfast, over lunch, over tears she didn't want anyone to see. She didn't attend the funeral. I was afraid, she whispered, that I wouldn't be able to hold back my tears. Weeks later, Harvey's wife, Deborah, visited Carol with a pale yellow envelope, its corners worn, Harvey's unmistakable slanted handwriting across the front. For Carol, when the laughter ends. Inside was a letter Harvey had written long before his death. Never mailed, never spoken of, just saved. Carol kept it in a safe for 20 years, unable to read it more than once. The words that broke her heart. She finally read a portion of the letter aloud in the 2025 interview. Her voice shook as if the ink were still wet. "I'm sorry I'd let pride destroy the only thing that ever made me feel real, my friendship with you. I let anger and fear steer me as if they mattered more than care." Then a line that silenced the entire studio. "If you can forgive this old clown for not knowing how to say thank you, then maybe I can forgive myself too." Carol stopped there. Her eyes filled. She couldn't continue. "I don't know if he loved me," she whispered, "but I know the best part of him only appeared when we stood on stage together." The sleepless night with the letter. The night she first read the full letter, Carol sat alone in her Brentwood home until dawn. Outside, fog blanketed the coast. Inside, a single desk lamp lit the room. "I felt him in the room with me," she said. "Not the performer, not the man struggling with fame, just Harvey, the person." She folded the letter gently, placed it back in the envelope, and returned it to her safe. No one knew it existed. Not her children, not her closest friends. For 20 years, that letter lived in the dark, as if waiting for the day she could finally face the truth. The line that stayed with her, forever one paragraph in the letter haunted her most. "I rewatch our old shows, Carol. Sometimes I pause when you're laughing and then I cry. Because I didn't know that the sound of your laughter was the only place I was ever myself." Carol wiped a tear during the interview. "That line," she whispered, "that line stayed with me for years." A friendship never properly goodbyed. She admitted something she had never said publicly. "I thought I had forgiven him. But when Deborah called to say he was gone, I realized I never had." She never said goodbye, never apologized, never told him she still cared. The silence between them had lasted too long. If she could speak to him one last time, the interviewer asked, "What would you say to Harvey if he were here now?" Carol closed her eyes, a long pause. Then, "I'd tell him we did what no one else could. We turned our sadness into laughter for a generation, and that laughter is still here." The dream that finally gave her peace. In one of the most emotional moments of the interview, Carol revealed a dream she had. She was sitting in the old studio, the stage empty, the lights dim. Harvey walked in, younger, lighter, smiling. He sat beside her and began whistling the show's opening tune. She asked, "Are you still mad at me?" He smiled. "No," he said. "We're just playing one more scene, Carol." She woke up with tears on her pillow, but also, she added, with a smile, "the last bow." When the PBS special Harvey Korman, 100 Years of Laughter, aired in 2025, Carol appeared in the final segment. She looked into the camera, that same gentle gaze Americans had adored for decades. She bowed, slow, deliberate, heartfelt. "This is for Harvey," she whispered, "because wherever he is, I know he's still smiling." Then she walked down the long, empty studio corridor, the last corridor of a legendary partnership. The lights faded behind her. Only one soft whisper remained. Every stage must close its curtain, but some souls stay in the applause. The studio was silent when Carol Burnett finished her story. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that follows truth. Heavy, sacred, human. Because what she revealed was not just the hidden life of Harvey Korman, it was the story of every artist who hides their wounds behind laughter, every performer who gives joy to the world while quietly losing pieces of themselves. And it was the story of a friendship, messy, painful, imperfect, that shaped an era of television and still echoes today. A legacy more complicated than fame. People call Harvey a legend, Carol said softly, and he was. But legends are not made from perfection. They're made from the cracks we try to hide. Harvey Korman's career was dazzling, but his humanity was even more striking. He was brilliant but insecure, hilarious yet deeply lonely, beloved yet terrified of being seen for who he truly was. And through it all, he performed, not just for the audience, but for survival. He laughed to survive, Carol whispered. And maybe that's why he made America laugh so hard. The greatest secret behind the laughter. For decades, fans believed Carol and Harvey were simply comedy partners, a perfect duo on stage. But behind every sketch, every punchline, every eruption of laughter, there was a bond built on understanding the parts of each other the world couldn't see. Harvey never believed he deserved love, Carol said, but he did deserve it more than he ever knew. And her voice trembled, not with regret, but with something that looked almost like forgiveness. The memory she holds closest. Carol recalled one small moment, a moment the world never saw. Harvey, backstage, snapping his fingers to cue the band, his laugh booming through the hallway, that childlike spark in his eyes. That, she said, is how I choose to remember him. Not the anger, not the fear, not the pain, but the man who, just for a moment, believed he was allowed to be happy. A goodbye. 50 years in the making. As the interview wrapped, Carol looked into the camera, not as a celebrity, not as a legend, but simply as a woman who had walked through life with a complicated friend. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. Harvey was a great artist, but also a lost soul. He lived in a world of laughter, but never believed he deserved to laugh. She touched the envelope, the old, faded letter, and maybe all he ever wanted was to be remembered not as a legend, but as a person. She bowed her head, then she said the words she had held inside for half a century. "I'm sorry, Harvey." And with that, the story finally came home. If this story moved you, if you believe that the laughter of an era should never be forgotten, if you want more untold truths from behind Hollywood's brightest lights and deepest shadows, please like this video, share it with someone who remembers those days, and subscribe to our channel. Because behind every legendary comedian, every glamorous star, every beloved performer, there is always a story the world never knew. And together, we will keep those stories alive.